Chapter 34 The Memories of a Rainy Night. Tanyu in March, the sea breeze is very gentle, the breath of spring occupies all the stage, roaming the mountains bloom a kind of unknown small yellow flowers. Families use the petals of this kind of flower to make tea to drink, while outside the door of their homes to chat with the neighbors. So walking in the streets of Tanyu Port, you can always smell that light fragrance, not ghostly and not greasy, just a pure, calm people in a very peaceful mood. And in the evening, it is the time when spring rains often come, diving into the night with the breeze, noiselessly moisturizing the land, so that the entire Tanyu city's black eaves and the street's green stone pavement, all covered with a layer of misty water. The pattering rain, gently falling on the poncho outside the grocery store, didn't make much of a sound, but merely rinsed away the shallow layer of dust, making the storefront look much more refreshed. But the grocery store was not open again today, so Fan Xian informed the old lady and sneaked into the store, peeling peanuts on one side and drinking wine with 5 bamboos on the other. The people in the Count's mansion should have known that he liked to come to the grocery store, but they all thought that the young master was just greedy for the good wine that the blind man had made himself. This was partly because Fan Xian was really good at wine, and partly because he needed a better excuse. Although it was impossible for him to completely avoid the eyes of others in his dealings with 5 bamboos, he was still more careful. The chopper was resting on the chopping board, which was dry and had no crumbs on the blade, so it looked like it hadn't been used in a long time. The sound of peanut shells being pinched and cracked rang out, and Fan Xian threw one into his mouth, chewing slowly until he had chewed all of the dried fruit into a fragrant paste and mush before he picked up the 3 small finger-sized porcelain cups in front of him and sent them to his lips to drink with a bared sound. The wine he drank today was not yellow wine, it was the tribute wine sent over from Kyoto, with a somewhat high degree, allowing Fan Xian to find a hint of Wuliangye. He was in no hurry to ask questions, for he knew that Uncle 5 Bamboo was a very simple man and would not keep himself waiting for long. Instead of sitting across from him, 5 Bamboos sat in a dark corner of the room with a bowl of yellow wine in his hand, and his ghostly voice rang out. The young lady's surname is Yi, and her name is Yi Qingmei. I am her house servant. Many years ago, I and the young lady came out of the house. Yi Qingmei. Fan Xian knew his mother's name for the first time. Inexplicably, his heart was warm, smiled and drank another glass of wine, and was very sensible not to ask where the home was. If Uncle Wuzhu is willing to tell himself, he will definitely tell himself. We lived in Dami City for a few years. Miss is naturally smart, knows everything, and has a heart of compassion, so from the age of 15, she started doing business in Dami City, only because she was too young. She just hid behind the curtain while letting the shopkeeper pretend to be the proprietor. Fan Xian's hand on his wine glass paused in midair and couldn't help but ask, what does doing business have to do with a compassionate heart? He wasn't curious as to why his mother was naturally smart or why she could do business and make money at the tender age of 15, because over the years, he had long since guessed that his own mother, for sure, wasn't a character that could be deduced by common sense. 5 Bamboo's very cold voice replied, because Miss pities the world's sorrows real much, so she likes to do good deeds. When Dami City was flooded, the one who opened the most kanji stores was Miss, and if you want to do good deeds, you must have money. So Miss started to think of ways to make money. Fan Xian nodded, recognizing the logic. The business was doing well, and gradually some people also found out that the owner behind the stores was Miss, so some people started to get ideas, and then they were all killed by me. 5 Bamboo spoke plainly, but Fan Xian knew that the situation must have been very tense at the time, and since Uncle 5 Bamboo said that the business was doing very well, then it must have been doing very well. As the saying goes, a 15-year-old woman with such a large family fortune could indeed easily trigger the ambitions of unscrupulous people in the world. However, it was only when he thought of having a supremely powerful person as a bodyguard for his mother that Fan Xian dropped his heart, which he had no reason to raise. He suddenly thought of something and asked with a frown, "Old Mom's surname is Yi. Could it be that the business firm you opened at that time was the Yi family?" "Yes. It's actually the Yi family." Fan Xian was filled with surprise. I've heard people say this name, and legend has it that more than 10 years ago, the Yi family was the #1 merchant company in the world. I just couldn't imagine that it turned out to be Mom's industry. I didn't realize how big the Yi family's business was. Five Bamboo said calmly, that is not part of my job. Miss thought I was killing too many people, so she ended her business in Dongyi City, came to Qinghua, and started living in Kyoto. Fan Xian felt that things shouldn't be so simple. Having sold his business in Dongyi City and coming to Qinghua, there had to be a more palatable reason. Five Bamboo continued, after the young lady came to Kyoto, she started doing business again, and again did very well. Later on, she got to know some people, including Sananbo. Everyone seemed to listen to her, and by following her ideas and preparing to do something and change some things, a conflict of interest arose with the princes and nobles of the Qing kingdom. Five Bamboo paused. There was a time when the kingdom of Qing was fighting a war with the West, and the defense force in Kyoto was empty, and it just so happened that a big event happened, and I wasn't in Kyoto, and something went wrong with the forces that Miss could rely on. Miss was killed by those princes and nobles who sent people to kill her. When I rushed back to Taiping Baiyan, I only saved you to come, and then I held you to come to Tanyuzu. This matter Fan Xian is very clear, also clear that those enemies as early as 10 years ago has been killed. The person who presided over the vengeance, I think it should be with the cheap old man, and the supervisory yuan cannot get involved. The long silence made the sound of rain outside the grocery stores seem particularly clear. Finished? Fan Xian asked with a frown, thinking could it be that his mother's life was summarized in a few simple sentences like this? What business had she done? What had she done that could bring the entire princes and nobles of Qing to deal with her? And why did the hefty teacher Fei Jie of the Supervisory Academy seem to respect his own mother the moment he mentioned her? Basically. Finished. Five Bamboo deliberated on his words. Fan Xian sighed, confirming that Uncle Five Bamboo was indeed not a good storyteller, and a bitter smile appeared on his pretty face, knowing that he still had to ask the question himself. What kind of business does my mother do? Luxury goods, armaments, ships, food, basically whatever makes money. Wu Zhu answered casually, but Fan Xian was shocked when he heard a term. His experience in 2 lives made him understand very well that people who could do this kind of business usually had a great background behind them, and an orphaned woman like his mother was actually able to start a business from nothing to such a terrifying extent. Then what happened to these businesses after Mother's death? This was the point that Fan Xian was most interested in. After all, according to the laws of Qing, he himself should be the sole heir to this huge inheritance. I later heard that all of the Yi family's businesses were returned to the Qing domestic treasury. Fan Xian shook his head with a bitter smile, so it turned out to be a royal business, and immediately cut off the absurd idea of filing a lawsuit to claim his family's property, and turned to laugh. The name Yi Qingmei must have been quite a drag back in the day. And I heard that when old Mom went into the capital city, she beat up the head of the Kyoto Guard Division. The oil lamp in the room flickered brightly and dimly, and hearing Fan Xian's words, Five Bamboo seemed to recall something from the past, and the corners of her lips picked upward somewhat rustily, revealing a gentle smile. Fan Xian's wrist stiffened, and the small porcelain cup landed on the square table spinning around bone deep as he cried out in his heart, laughing. He actually laughed.